What you're seeing right here is Dante easily walking through level cap enemies that are 9,999. So it's clear this is a in-game build. However, if you're new to Dante, I'm gonna break down exactly how to play this character. It's one of the best characters in the game and 100% worth your investment. So once we get into the in-game build later, specifically how to build Dante and how to build his book, because his Noctua book can also be modded separately. If you're in the in-game, this build can go to level cap, it can walk through ETA, EDA, and if you're new, you'll have something to know what to strive towards, what mods to chase after, and what to invest in. Because I stayed up until 7 a.m. 2 days in a row fine-tuning this build. That way you don't have to. There's really two things that make Dante special. The fact that he's an insane support character, giving overguard to your entire team, which is basically overshield but prevents enemies from knocking you to the ground. So you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting your entire team. But the fact that his first ability, his Noctua, acts both as a weapon and an ability is just absolutely insane. So I'm gonna break down the build that primarily focuses on a Noctua focused build. But later in the video, I'll cover another build if you have other weapons that you prefer to use instead. So his first ability pulls out Noctua. You could snapshot ability strength into this, for example, using your Matter Eye, doing 2 void slings before popping this first ability. But if that's too complex, don't worry about doing that. So the build that I'm going to get into in the playstyle is literally holding left click, walking through any type of enemy that comes your way. But how do you use the rest of his abilities and what do they do? When you click your second ability, it will give you and your team overguard. If you notice a symbol on the bottom right of the screen gets added to your book, once you cast a second ability, you are then able to use your fourth ability called the final verse. So if you click your second ability again for more overguard and then click your final verse, it's essentially a buffed up version of your second ability. Now if you use your third ability, it does these slash attacks. So if you do your third ability again and then your fourth ability, it's a buffed up version of that, a giant room clearing nuclear slash attack. But what happens if you mix and match? And you're going to want to make sure to do this, because if you use your second ability and then your third ability before your final verse, it spawns a Noctua book next to you that will attack whenever you shoot. And this book inherits the mods that you put on your Noctua, which I'll cover later. If you do your third ability and then your second ability into your final verse, this is going to spawn a bunch of birds that fly around the room called peregrines. They're going to swoop and attack enemies and making them more vulnerable to status chance and status damage. And it also distracts enemies, adding to even more survivability. So how you play this character is super easy. You're just going to hold your fire button as you destroy all the enemies with your Noctua, but you're going to keep up your word warden, which is the book next to you that spawns, and you're going to keep up the birds. So just pay attention to your timers on the top right of the screen. Whenever you see those gone, just make sure to recast those abilities. And whenever you see your overguard dwindling, you can hit that second ability twice into your final verse to give your team and yourself a bunch of overguard. So he's actually very straightforward once you understand how all these abilities work, and he can go in the hardest content in the game. And not to mention his passive is going to actually scan targets, recording them into your codex, and status chance is going to be increased by 50% on fully scanned targets. So I'm going to get into the build on my Noctua that's my favorite that I used for those level cap enemies, 9,999. I'll just start out with the Arcane, and we're going to use Cascadia Flare to get up to 480% damage, which means we are going to have to mod heat on this. If you want to screenshot all the mods, I'll let you see this right here before we get into all the mods, but we have Diffusion for multi-shot, we have Frostbite along with Pestilence to combine to make viral, Pistol Elementalist for extra status damage, this is multiplicative with Cascadia Flare, Lethal Torrent for fire rate and multi-shot. Then we have Prime Heated Charge. If you don't have the Prime mod, you can just get the normal Heated Charge, Prime Target Cracker for the critical damage, and Prime Pistol Gamut for the crit chance. Now this is huge. If you don't have these, it's totally fine, but whenever you kill an enemy, the armor and shields of all other enemies within affinity range is reduced by 5%. 5% doesn't seem a lot, but affinity range is a very large radius. This is every single kill. Combining this with your 50% strip from your heat, you're gonna have total armor strip in no time. The build that I use with Dante paired with this Noctua build is right here. You can screenshot this if you need to. So we are using Hot Shot, because again, this is a heat build. This is where we're getting most of our crit chance. This allows us to get up to those orange crits and definitely a handful of red crits as well. Because it says when using your abilities that inflict heat, you get this buff in your crit chance. And again, the Noctua counts both as a weapon and an ability. So it's pretty cool interaction because this mod is giving our weapon higher crit chance. You need an ability to activate it. The Noctua accounts for both of these conditions. The other Arcane is Arcane Velocity. Whenever you do get a critical hit, which will be all the time, you're gonna have a 90% chance for 120% fire rate to pistols, and the Noctua counts as a pistol. This makes the Noctua shoot insanely fast. So I have preparation recommendation just to use all my abilities at the start of the mission. This is up to you if you want to use this or not. You could use a yellow Tau shard. We have growing power for the ability strength, prime continuity for the duration. Archon vitality is huge. We're going to have double damage on our heat ticks since we do have heat on our book. And again, remember our book counts as an ability. You might wonder why we have Archon stretch for a little bit of energy regen. You don't have to use this. But a little tip, your companions can actually activate this. To make the video simple, you could just not have this mod on your build, but I do have a Diriga with Arc Coil, and this does activate that mod. Prime Flow for the extra energy, Transient Fortitude for even more strength, Blind Rage for even more strength, Umbral Intensify for even more strength, and Equilibrium to help just keep our energy topped off with how many abilities we'll be spamming. But realistically, I shouldn't even say how many abilities we're spamming because you're mostly just holding left click with this playstyle, with this build, with how much damage it does. The Archon shards that I have, again, you could switch these out. This is just for my particular build, this heat. We are using 2 orange Tau shards to have even more crit chance. This just helps to keep it consistent. Combining this with my hot shot and my Mazda, my Noctua, we're always going to be in those orange and often reds. Having a Tau Forge yellow with casting speed is super nice, just so casting those different abilities doesn't feel as sluggish. I have 2 green ones for extra ability damage to enemies affected by corrosive. Again, you could switch these out if you don't have the setup that I do. You might wonder where my corrosive's coming from. Again, that goes to my companion. I have a Tazikor on my Diriga. Here's the build for that. We have corrosive, cold, and magnetic. If you really wanted something to strive for, definitely Diriga Tazikor is an amazing companion that you can never go wrong with for applying status. So there's the Tazikor build, and then here is the Diriga build. If you wanted to screenshot that to see what I have going. There's a bunch of other companions you could use. With this build, you don't have to use that, and you don't even have to use these green Tau Forge shards. I'm just letting you know why I am. You could add ability strength or other Archon shards of your choosing. Now I'm going to show you the final build. This is if you don't want to have to use the Noctua, when you can subsume Roar over top of it if you want to use your own weapon. Objectively, this one technically would be better. It's just fun for me to use the Noctua, especially if my ETA or EDA doesn't have a weapon that I have fully built. This one would be great if you have something like a Torrid or whatever else is your favorite weapon. You can use Molt Augmented and Impetus. Whenever you apply unique status effects from abilities, your ability strength and efficiency are going to go up for 20 seconds. Here's a whole build. You can take a screenshot right here. The Noctua build I have for this. Now, even though our Roar is subsumed over Noctua, the builds on your Noctua matter for this. As I said, your Word Warden, which is when you cast your 2 and your 3 into Final Verse, that will spawn that book next to you. That book inherits these mods. What this playstyle is essentially using that Word Warden as a status primer. It's going to apply status, which will feed into that Impetus Arcane that I just showed you on the final Dante build. So we're going to use Encumber on the Noctua, because whenever you do a status effect, it's going to trigger another status effect, easily maxing out that Impetus. And we have Hornet Strike, Target Cracker, Prime Pistol Gambit, Pistol Elementalist, Prime Fulmination for the extra blast radius, Prime Heated Charge and Cold for blast, and Toxin. The reason that we have blast is because when that Noctua Word Warden on your side applies the blast, as that blast starts to spread, each of those counts as a hit, causing your book to essentially fire automatically. With this build, since it's a status primer, you can use a mod like Galvanized Aptitude, because it's going to increase your direct damage per status type affecting the target for 20 seconds and stacks up to ×2. So you can apply tons of status effects, so it's 40% for each one of those. Since it's up to ×2, technically it's 80% for each one of those status effects, which this can get up to over 1,000 extra damage. But again, my favorite build is the first one I showed, just using Cascadia Flare and Hot Shot and just literally holding the fire button on Noctua and running through any level enemy. The build definitely takes high investment, but it's totally worth it. I'll give you something to strive towards and work towards. By me testing all my level cap, if it works there, it'll work anywhere. Now, if you want to know another Warframe that's worth investing in, I'd recommend Protea Prime. You can check out this video right here to see if you like that playstyle, as that character is also a great support Warframe and insane survivability and damage, just like Dante.